Hello, this is JOMAJ Studios, and this is our original fantasy action adventure, The Fall of Nale, Episode 10. As promised, the pirate ship dropped the noble warrior on the shores of the Isitian region. Continuing with this quest isn't the only option you have. I would more than welcome a fighter of your caliber as a member of my crew, offered the captain as he shook Jacob's hand. Thank you, but I must go on. For if I fail, no one will be safe, not me, not you or anyone we love, insisted Jacob. The captain nodded his head as a sign of respect for the young warrior's decision. The pirate ship set sail and Jacob began his journey through the icy wasteland that was the Isitian region. After a day of non-stop trekking, Jacob's body had weakened considerably, for at this point he had run out of food and water. In fact, the only thing that kept him from freezing to death was his clothing that had been touched by the Hilarion waters. A wild blizzard then began to storm through the air. The storm made it almost impossible to see or even move, and to make things worse, there seemed to be absolutely nowhere for the young warrior to take cover. Recalling his father's survival training, Jacob began digging through the snowy ground beneath him. His plan was to dig a hole and take shelter in it until the storm ended. As the young warrior desperately attempted to dig through the ground, a large white yeti-like creature grabbed him by the leg and flung him to the floor. Jacob was drained of so much energy, there was nothing in him to ignite his reflexes or muster up any strength to run from the creature, let alone fight it. The noble warrior tried to get to his feet, but only got as far as his hands and knees, when the monster kicked him hard in the stomach, a kick that threw him more than 8 feet into the air. By the time he hit the ground, he was unconscious. Jacob awoke on a king-sized bed covered in silk sheets, in a large room fit for royalty. As the young warrior looked down at himself to check for wounds, he noticed he was dressed in a red, woolly robe, under which he was totally naked. Jacob was slowly getting off the bed when he noticed his original clothing and weapons arranged neatly on a chair in a corner of the room. "I see you're awake," said a cheerful-looking old man as he entered the room dressed in a long, white cotton gown-like attire. "Who are you?" asked Jacob quietly, a bit wary of his surroundings. "My name is Dolrun, and this castle is my home. Some of my servants rescued you from a wild animal while out gathering supplies," informed the stranger, still maintaining his cheerful persona. "Am I still in the Isitian region?" asked Jacob, now scared that his rescuers may have unwittingly knocked him far off course. "Yes, you are. Is everything all right?" asked the host, who seemed a bit concerned about how jumpy Jacob seemed. "I'm fine. Thank you for everything, but I must be on my way," said Jacob, using the same hastiness he used to speak to put on his clothing. "Slow down, young man. You will not get very far if you don't rest and get a proper meal in your stomach. Besides, it doesn't make sense trying to travel through the storm out there," advised Doran as he watched Jacob display his eagerness to resume his journey. Jacob, seeing sense in the stranger's words, calmed down and took a seat on the bed. Doran then clapped his hands, signaling to some of his servants to push in a large cart full of all sorts of dishes, from roast chicken to boiled rice to a variety of fruits, vegetables, soups and desserts. "Now eat up and get back your strength," advised Doran, then leaving the room with his servants. Jacob, who hadn't eaten in a whole day, wasn't able to resist the food placed in front of him. After feasting for a good 1 hour, Jacob decided to take a nap. Minutes later, the door to Jacob's room opened slowly, and a teenage boy peered in. After noticing the noble warrior, who seemed to be fast asleep, the boy slowly began to tiptoe towards Jacob. The brown-haired and brown-eyed boy, who was wearing the same robe that was given to Jacob, stood over the noble warrior and watched him sleep. The boy then noticed Jacob's enchanted staff, which was placed beside him on the bed. The boy slowly made an attempt to grab hold of it, when without warning, Jacob, still with his eyes closed, grabbed the boy by the arm and put him in a wrist lock. "Who sent you?" asked Jacob as he lay on the bed with his eyes closed. "No one," answered the boy, who was by now very alarmed. Jacob responded by using the boy's hand to flip him onto the bed while he got to his feet. "What do you want?" asked Jacob, now pointing his staff at the boy's throat. "Nothing. I just wanted to meet another like me," said the boy, now on the verge of being terrified. Jacob looked the boy in the eye before deciding he was telling the truth. The noble warrior then put his staff away and took a seat on the chair opposite the bed. "My name is Kalian, and like you have been given the privilege to cross over in the name of purity," said the boy as he sat up on the bed he was thrown on. "Crossover? Purity?" said Jacob, not having a clue about what Kalian was talking about. "Every season, Doran picks noble individuals from all over the land to take part in this ceremony. Each individual soul is taken and then released into the realm of purity, where the soul will be one with the gods, explained Callion with great excitement. Wow, that sounds very exciting, said Jacob sarcastically. I know. We only have a few hours before they come for us, said Callion, unable to pick up the real meaning behind Jacob's words. That's nice. I would like to sleep before the big ceremony. Would you excuse me? Sure, no problem, said Callion, then leaving the room hastily. Shortly after, Jacob got all his things together and began to make a move. His aim was to find the exit of the castle and leave unnoticed. This proved to be more difficult than the noble warrior had expected, for the castle was like a labyrinth. As Jacob continued to look for his way out of Dolorun's castle, he heard the scream of a young man, which sounded like the result of a torturing session. The screams continued, and it sounded like a different person gave out each scream. Jacob decided to follow the unsettling noises and was led to a dark underground chamber. After ensuring he was out of sight, the noble warrior looked around and noticed a young boy, about Callion's age, laid on a table that was surrounded by Dolorun and 14 of his peers. Would you like to say anything before we bestow this great honor on you? Asked Dolorun. I only wish to say that this is the happiest day of my life, replied the young boy. Dolorun then placed his hand on the boy's chest, and a white surge of energy began to suck out the boy's life force. This caused the boy to scream, for the process was extremely painful. As Jacob watched the ceremony, it became very clear that he stumbled onto a very dark custom. Jacob then quietly made his way back up the stairs that led him into the underground chamber. As he got to the top of the stairs, he literally came face to face with one of Dolorun's servants. Before the servant could utter a word, Jacob struck him with a headbutt and then broke his right arm. Quietly lead me out of the castle, or I will break your other arm, said Jacob as he covered the servant's mouth to prevent him from crying out. The servant then expressed his willingness to cooperate with a nod of his head. As requested, the servant led Jacob out of the castle unnoticed. I'm going to let go of you now. Go back in without making a sound, instructed Jacob, still covering the servant's mouth, as they both walked onto the icy Isitian landscape. As Jacob let go of the servant, the follower of Dolorun went against Jacob's orders and yelled out a warning at the castle in his mother tongue. Jacob, now very irritated, silenced the servant with a solid kick to the face. But he was too late. The servant's warning was heard and the entrance to the castle closed behind the noble warrior. Jacob, who was safely outside the castle, at first saw no imminent danger. Suddenly, at the side of the castle, the gates of a giant cage violently swung open, and a demonic-looking polar bear, touched by evil sorcery, charged at Jacob with extreme conviction. The noble warrior reacted by attempting to release the fury of his staff, but he was unable to do so on time, for the bear disarmed him of his enchanted weapon by striking him across the chest with its powerful paw. The creature's attack threw Jacob more than 10 feet into the air. After hitting the snowy ground hard, the noble warrior noticed a wild animal moving in for the kill. Fueled by his own adrenaline, Jacob got to his knees and rolled out of the way of the bear's razor-sharp claws. As the young warrior moved out of harm's way, he noticed his staff, which laid on the floor more than 20 meters away from him. The bear, moving at an incredible speed, attempted to pounce at the noble warrior, but Jacob responded by executing a straddle jump over the creature. The polar bear continued its attack by swinging its paw at the Nale warrior in a back fist motion. Jacob avoided this attack with a backward roll, from which he fell into a series of backflips that finished off with a backward somersault to land right beside his enchanted weapon. Jacob kicked up his staff and spun it into an offensive position, just in time to take on the polar bear that had already begun to leap towards him. Jacob, having no time to show any mercy, greeted the bear in mid-air by striking it as hard as he could in the center of its head. By the time the animal hit the floor, it was dead. After his battle with the wild bear, Jacob noticed a sleigh rigged up to a pack of wolves. Wasting no time, Jacob jumped on the sleigh and rode off. As he rode past some nearby mountains, the snow that covered them came alive and began to chase him in form of a ferocious avalanche. Despite the intensity of his efforts, Jacob was unable to outrun the snowy advocate of destruction, and in a matter of minutes, he and his newly found sleigh were consumed by the roaring snow. A graveyard-like calmness then followed, and all life seemed to be lost. Then from out of the snow, the young warrior struggled to dig his way out. Because of his enchanted clothing, he was lucky enough to emerge from the avalanche's wrath without a broken bone and only a few scratches. As Jacob dusted the snow off his clothing, a being made out of solid ice slowly began to materialize from out of the snow behind him. Sensing that something was behind, the noble warrior swung around with his staff, ready for combat. only to have his weapon hit out of his hand as a Hazellite of Ice back-kicked him to the floor. The icy being followed up his initial attack by trying to stomp on the young warrior while he was still on the ground, but Jacob reacted by rolling out of the way and flipping up to his feet, and instantaneously fending off the Iceman attacks that consisted of well-placed punches and kicks. Jacob, using his extensive knowledge of the Eastern martial arts, fought the Ice Hazellite one-on-one with his bare hands. The Hazellite was strong and fast, but where Jacob lacked in strength, he made up with flexibility, speed, and agility. The Ice Hazellite, now more than aware he was facing a formidable opponent, temporarily blinded the noble warrior by blowing a patch of fog in his eyes. This distracted Jacob only for a couple of seconds. However, in those seconds, the Iceman wasted no time in gaining the upper hand. Jacob began to get continuously struck by the demonic being until finally he was thrown to the floor with a powerful uppercut. While the young warrior lay on the floor, stricken with pain, the icy fiend began to use the snow around him to create a thick and spiky armor made out of pure ice. The armor that had merged with the Hazellite's body caused the demonic being's mass to multiply 10-folds over. The Hazellite of Ice then leaped up into the air in an effort to crush the noble warrior with its body weight. Jacob, out of sheer desperation, reacted by quickly rolling out of the way, at the same time flinging his enchanted boomerang at the icy foe. The enchanted boomerang shattered half of the Hazellite's body in mid-air. By the time the Ice Hazellite hit the floor seriously injured, Jacob had regained possession of his staff. In a matter of moments, the noble warrior without hesitation ended his icy assailant's existence. That is the end of episode 10, but before we go, answer this episode's question. If Jacob is a Christian, is it right he did nothing to talk the Escythian boy out of the suicidal ceremony? Refer to the Bible and give your answers via any of JOMAJ Studios' social media platform links, which can be found at jomajstudios.com. Like Water, The Next Age is now available on paperback and in ebook format via any Kindle device. Also, check out the JOMAJ Studio website, Twitter page, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube channel for the complete Like Water series and all other JOMAJ Studio features.